dear friends of the internet, it is me, Edward. Today I want to look at the so-called PRISM scandal from the technical perspective. The PRISM scandal has come about because the Washington Post has revealed a secret government program that has a lot of people changing their minds about how they feel about President Obama. Personally, I liked the Obama who said he was going to kick some ass so that the government would stop snooping in on our phone calls.
I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom. That means no more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more tracking citizens who do nothing more than protest a misguided war. No more ignoring the law when it is inconvenient. That is not who we are. And it's not what is necessary to defeat the terrorists.
I'm not very happy with the new Obama, who oversees a government that does more snooping on U.S. citizens than the Bush administration ever did. Obama has explained that the government is only collecting telephone metadata, the call detail records, that don't include conversations. That would be information like the number you called, the duration of the call, the cell phone tower, your GPS location, etc.
When it comes to telephone calls, nobody is listening to your telephone calls. That's not what this program's about. As was indicated, what the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls. They are not looking at people's names, and they're not looking at content.
This video really isn't about the constitutionality of government intrusions. It's about what the NSA's capabilities really are. I know a little something about wiretapping because I've actually done it. Back in the 1990s, I operated a long-distance telephone company in Buenos Aires, Argentina called CSI Callback. I could listen into conversations without callers knowing about it with a device called a butt phone. I only did this to verify call quality and to verify proper disconnect. I could achieve what I needed by listening in for a duration of about 5 seconds. I never listened long enough to interpret anyone's conversation. There are two kinds of phone lines, analog lines and digital lines. Many years ago, all lines were analog, and that meant that to tap into a line, you had to have physical access to that line, geographically near one of the telephones, and you had to be listening or recording at the very moment that a call was made. Once the call was over, it would be too late to listen in. But today, all telephone calls that originate or are received in the USA are at some point just bytes over a digital data line. And this brings us to our first question. Is it technically possible for the government to listen into a given phone conversation without tapping into the line geographically near one of the telephones? Yes. The reason is that all telephone lines, even ones that support old rotary dial analog phones, are converted to digital at some point not geographically far from the telephone. Once the signal is digital, it is a data stream that will pass through one of the hubs that the NSA is monitoring. Can they listen in after the phone call has taken place? The answer is yes. All data communications, including phone conversations, run through a small number of hubs, and the NSA has been tapping into those hubs and recording all of that data for years.
If you want to tap into international communications, it seems like the perfect place is San Luis Obispo. That's where 80% of all communications from Asia enter the United States.
But under NSA's new orders, they don't tap in here. Instead, the cables run straight from San Luis Obispo to a building in San Francisco. The building at 611 Folsom Street is AT&T's regional switching center. All the international traffic snakes up to the 7th floor. and it is here that a crucial change takes place. The 7th floor is also where AT&T's domestic traffic is routed. In 2003, an AT&T engineer notices that the cables on the 7th floor have been rerouted, and a mirror image of all the traffic, both domestic and international, is now being sent to a secret room 1 floor below.
It was obvious that this was some kind of NSA installation. I figured out that what they were doing was a blind, wholesale copying of the entire internet data flow. And this meant randomly scooping up huge amounts of purely domestic data as well as international data.
When I hear the word wiretap, I've always imagined some person in a trench coat and a black hat and sunglasses skulking around after dark, secretly tapping into a wire and hoping that no one notices. But what they've done in that facility is, by full light of day, they've cut the fiber optic cables and then reconnected them in a splitter. What they have built is a facility that is capable of monitoring absolutely all data communication through it.
Is it technically possible for the government to flag a given call because someone speaks certain words or calls a certain location? Yes.
The most curious piece of equipment in that room is a completely flexible monitoring system that can be told on a moment's notice, please monitor all conversation that contains the word hummingbird. Please monitor all conversation that goes to Mobile, Alabama. Please monitor all conversations that contain both the word hummingbird and go to Mobile, Alabama.
Technically speaking, how difficult would it be for an agent of the NSA to listen in on a phone call?
As a voice interceptor, Adrian Kinney listened to some of those calls. Assigned by the Army to NSA, she was called back to active duty after 9/11.
For a voice interceptor, the computer system would essentially pop up, and it would be very similar, I would say, to iTunes, where you could just go through and click on various conversations, and it would have the phone number, the time up, time down.
Yeah, went over, we had a little barbecue.
We were told that we were to listen to all conversations that were intercepted, to include those of Americans and other allied countries.
Some of those conversations are personal, some even intimate.
And there was no directive to say that when you had conversations like this come through that you should delete them. That's what we did when I was on active duty in 94 to 98. We would never collect on an American. I had a real problem with the fact that people were listening to it and that I was listening to it. The time that that interceptor, that voice interceptor, is spending listening to conversations in the States, that's time that they can't spend looking or listening for actual conversations related to terrorist organizations.
Is it possible for the government to recognize the voice of an individual among the thousands of other calls that are happening at a given moment, even if the caller is not calling from his own phone? Yes.
July 23rd, 1992. A covert team from the US Army's Electronic Espionage Unit arrives in Medellin. Their mission is to locate Escobar's precise position in this city of 2 million. Colombian police, assisted by the US DEA, will then move in and capture the fugitive. On board the light aircraft is sophisticated telephone surveillance equipment. On the ground, Peña and his team wait, ready to pounce. The technology is classified, but the principle is simple. Computerized voice matching can isolate a single voice from the thousands of phone calls being made at any one time. If Escobar picks up the phone, they should know about it within seconds. They circle the city, and wait for Colombia's most wanted man to give himself away. 6,000 meters below, Escobar believes he is prepared for the game of cat and mouse.
Uno, dos, tres.
After years spent running a drugs cartel, he is all too aware of the risks of making a phone call.
Hello? Sí.
Above Medellin, the voice recognition equipment locks on. It's Escobar. Receivers hidden in the plane's wingtips and fuselage pick up the direction of the signal. The pilot begins flying in an arc. The surveillance team need time to get as many fixes as possible. Only then can they narrow down the target's position. In the time it takes the aircraft to complete a half circle, the system can pinpoint Escobar to within 100 meters. 3 minutes is all that's needed.
Yeah. Got it.
After 2 minutes, Escobar hangs up and continues his call from another phone.
Hello?
Normally the tactic would work, but Escobar doesn't know about the advanced US technology. The team quickly isolate his voice again and lock on once more. The pilot is finishing his arc. They need Escobar to talk for just another 40 seconds. They've got him. He's in a suburb of Medellin called Tres Esquinas, 6.5 kilometers from his former prison. US drug enforcement agent Javier Peña and the Colombian troops close in once again.
What offends me most about Obama is he is asking that we trust our government.
That's not to suggest that you just say, trust me, we're doing the right thing, we know who the bad guys are. And the reason that's not how it works is because we've got congressional oversight and judicial oversight. And if people can't trust not only the executive branch, but also don't trust Congress and don't trust federal judges to make sure that we're abiding by the Constitution, due process, and rule of law, then we're going to have some problems here.
Did he trust the Bush administration when he was running for office? No, he did not. I contend that one who truly loves his country would never trust the government, especially when there is no method to verify that it is worthy of one's trust. Your telephone calls, faxes, emails, chats, web searches, shopping, personal photos, videos, and even your geographic location are all trackable and are being tracked by the NSA. The government is not your friend. It is tracking all of us so it can stay in business. One of its most profitable businesses is the war on terror. And I contend that most government employees, even those with the best of intentions, will set aside the Constitution for their paychecks any day of the week. That is, except one guy, and that would be Edward Snowden, the whistleblower in this PRISM scandal. Everything he is saying just reinforces what Nova reported on years ago.
Talk a little bit about how the American surveillance state actually functions. Does it target the actions of Americans?
NSA and the intelligence community in general is focused on getting intelligence wherever it can by any means possible that it believes on the grounds of sort of a self-certification that they serve the national interest. Originally, we saw that focus very narrowly tailored as foreign intelligence gathered overseas. Now, increasingly, we see that it's happening domestically. And to do that, the NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default. It collects them in its system, and it filters them, and it analyzes them, and it measures them, and it stores them for periods of time, simply because that's the easiest, most efficient, and most valuable way to achieve these ends. So while they may be intending to target someone associated with a foreign government or someone that they suspect of terrorism, they're collecting your communications to do so. Any analyst at any time can target anyone, any selector anywhere. Where those communications will be picked up depends on the range of the sensor networks and the authorities that that analyst is empowered with. Not all analysts have the ability to target everything, but I, sitting at my desk, certainly had the authorities to wiretap anyone, from you or your accountant to a federal judge to even the president if I had a personal email.
Hello, Mr. President. It's the NSA calling. We got your check. Thanks for supporting our program. We're recording every call made in America, including this one.